Welcome to the session on scoping your review. I'm sorry I can't be with you at the moment, but I'm very pleased to receive this award. So why should we do a scoping search? There are three main reasons. First of all, we're trying to establish what concepts are going to be included and excluded from our review, highlighting any potential difficulties in interpretation. We're looking at the feasibility of our review in terms of both the volume of the literature and its characteristics in relation to study design. And we, importantly in this context, want to estimate a realistic cost for the work that we're going to be conducting. So what is required? Well, obviously we need to build up an accurate picture of the terminology through the scoping process. We need to be able to estimate the number of studies and their likely study designs. And importantly, we need to be able to come up with some ballpark estimates of those activities we can describe as being volume related, by which we mean sifting the title and abstract, sifting the full text, the data extraction, and the quality assessments. And in fact, that's a very helpful way of thinking about it. If we look at the various stages of the review here, we'll see that some elements are fixed. In other words, they will have to be done whatever the size of the review, and some elements are variable, and they will depend on the complexity of the review and the characteristics of the literature. And so the search strategy and literature searching phases are part fixed and part variable. Whereas when we move to such stages as removing the duplicates, sifting the title and the abstracts, sifting the full texts, the data extraction and the quality assessment, then these will typically vary according to the volume of literature that we have. And then back to meta-analysis and report writing, which will have some fixed time and other time depending on the number of included studies. And we have to use the scoping process to head off two particular problems. One is that the review becomes too large. This is an issue for us in terms of the logistics, in terms of how feasible it is, or there is the danger of the review becoming too narrow. And here the danger is that the commissioner is given something that they can't really use because it's what's known as an empty review. When describing this particular challenge to my students, I use the illustration of a block of cheese where the dimensions are the populations, the interventions and the outcomes, and decisions made in narrowing either the population or the intervention or the number of outcomes have a beneficial effect in reducing the workload, whereas keeping it large, including all three of those dimensions at their maximum, will likely cause problems with the review. The figures we're interested in are the number of records we have to look through as a proportion of those that yield full text articles, and then the second conversion rate, the number of full text articles we need to look through in order to include positive studies for inclusion in our review. And here are some illustrative figures for some recent reviews done by ScHARR. It's very difficult to judge the context of them, but we could make some observations that where the numbers go in over 5,000, then it suggests that the searchers are being very sensitive, and obviously this results in large numbers needed to read, and the second conversion rate there is the number of full text articles that we need to read in terms of the numbers of included references. And again, when the numbers there go certainly over the 200s, then we have a large number of abstracts to read in order to yield our final included studies. And it would seem sensible for us to collect more of this sort of data so that we can anticipate for particular types of review what sort of figures would be required, what sort of hit rates to expect, and what sort of number of records identified to negotiate with the information resources team. If we turn that into workload, here are some rough estimates. The precise figures given later in the workshop may differ slightly, but we can see that activities based around looking at titles and abstracts can probably be done at the rate of between 70 and 100 an hour. Sifting the full texts, more intensive process, maybe we can look at 4 to 6 articles in an hour. When it comes to data extraction and quality assessment, then we may be spending a combined total of between 2 and 3 hours per included study. And of course, these figures will depend on the experience of the reviewers, the number of reviewers in the team, and the ability for them to continue to work at what we might say at a peak, the hit rate of relevant articles, the length of the articles when it comes to reading, the number of outcomes and the homogeneity of the outcomes when it comes to data extraction, and the number of study designs when it comes to quality assessment. It's worth bearing in mind that for a large number of studies, reviews, 80% of included studies could be identified from a very tight Medline search, and yet typically our own teams and other information retrieval teams will only locate around 50% via Medline searches. So one possibility is to make Medline searches more sensitive and make searches of other databases less sensitive. Another possibility in the context of consultancy is to perhaps think in terms of a two-stage approach. First of all, of searching core concepts and core databases, and then maybe some subsidiary work in mopping up concepts and using lesser named databases. And the advantage of this means that the review team has likely useful references to work through earlier in the process. Of course, we mustn't forget the important role of supplementary searching, especially citation searching, in the follow-up of more recent references. In terms of scoping the review, here are the details from the CRD web pages of the approaches recommended. Typically, we'll look for existing reviews and major trials and studies, and from that gain a picture of what the field looks like, and this can help us in estimating the size of the literature and by extension the cost of the review. The session will conclude with a brief demonstration of PubMed PubReminer, a useful tool for giving us a helicopter picture of what a topic area looks like and to make some decisions on scope. In terms of the size of the literature, there's very little reported on how to estimate this. This study, which is very old now, did find a direct relationship between the number of initial citations and the total time it takes to complete. And it broke down the averages for the various stages, of which you'll notice that almost half is the statistical analysis, the report writing, and the administrative ahead. And this shows a clear relationship between the number of citations you have to work with and the time taken for a review. When working in the context of consultancy, we should be particularly looking for ways of working smarter in terms of overlap. So, for example, the idea of having 2 stages to literature searching so the review team can get on earlier may well be an important option. Increasingly, we're seeing the importance of mapping as a first stage. This is particularly important if you haven't finalised the inclusion with your commissioner, and so getting an initial picture of how the evidence is distributed will help to make some of these decisions and to negotiate what will be included. And this population intervention study type matrix shows how studies are distributed across different populations and different interventions, and so we can make, for example, a decision not only on which study types to include but also on how to divide up the workload. There are 4 main tools for scoping your review. PubMed Reminer we'll come to shortly. PubMed Clinical Queries, which allows us to get a picture of existing systematic reviews and trials in a particular area. PubMed Special Queries, which does the same thing for qualitative and economic studies, and one to watch, Epistemonicus, which is a way of seeing which studies have been included in previous reviews and which similar reviews are available on a topic. Just to mention that data mining is likely to become more important, and certainly we've recently been considering use of the Epi Reviewer software, which offers this as a way of defining the scope of study. Just to go to Epistemonicus here we identify a systematic review according to some keywords we've typed in. From that record we can then find there are 6 included studies, but in the box to the right we can see that there are 18 related systematic reviews covering a total of 469 primary studies, and we can drill down to see what the included studies are. And the next phase of this particular software will now allow us to actually see the implications of including, for example, all studies previously included in a past review, as depicted on this matrix. So in terms of our recommended reading, very little on the logistics, very much more on the importance scientifically of focusing a question. And now I'm going to do a short demonstration of PubMed Reminer. Thank you for your attention.